You're listening to GotTechED the Podcast with your hosts, Eric Guise and Nick Johnson. Welcome back to GotTechED the Podcast. This is episode 49 called Education Questions That Need Answering. In this episode, we reflect on some of our favorite happenings from 2019 as we answer 10 listener questions that we've accumulated over the past several months. You'll hear our take on everything from bored students to creative teaching on a budget. In our final segment, Guise and I will share our plans for the upcoming winter break. Check it out.
Whoa, it's episode number 49. This means a couple of different things. One, we are one away from half of an accomplishment.
Yeah, I know. That's halfway to the triple digits is pretty crazy. What's the other thing that 49 means? I mean, that's a big number.
49 means it's the last episode of 2019.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, we're closing in. This is sort of like our yearly wrap-up episode. We did a similar version an entire year ago of GotTechED the Podcast, where we just sort of close in on, I guess, like you said, reflections from the year, things we liked, things we didn't like, things that worked well, things we're excited about. And we wanted to kind of bring you guys something similar to that today in this episode to close out 2019. So have you had some time, guys, to reflect and kind of consider where we've been and where we're going?
I have, but before I get to reflections, I just want to say it's half an accomplishment because Nick and I sat down at the beginning of GotTechED and we made a goal of getting to at least 100. And I mean, that was a lofty goal. It's a big, lofty goal. But we didn't want to just do this for 10 episodes and be like, you know what, we're done. We wanted to give it a shot to see what it turns into. And I'm very happy of our successes and our learning experiences, aka failures, that we've had so far. So that kind of ties it into the reflections a little bit. And for both of us, we've had some successes personally in our education.
Yeah, it's been a big year for that. And less so for me. I know Guise has some exciting news. I'll let you share it in a second. But I earned an advanced degree this year. I finally got my master's degree in education, and it was a long time coming. Anybody who's been through this process knows it's a grind as teachers, especially because you're doing it, on top of your normal career. So you're at work 8 hours a day, at least, maybe more if you do any kind of coaching or extracurriculars, and then you go home and trying to wrestle grading and lesson planning and hopefully learning about new tech. And then on top of that, you've got your own schoolwork and papers to write and readings to do. It's just, it's brutal, but we somehow we do it and we get through it. And it's nice to kind of put that extra feather in your cap. I think a lot about what the master's degree, or really any degree, kind of does for you. A lot of teachers I hear get it. They say like, it's just didn't really do much for me. It's just an extra piece of paper. Maybe it gives you a little bump in pay if you're lucky. But I think for me at least, I don't know how you feel, but it definitely kind of it advanced or expanded my understanding of, I don't know, sometimes just like the human brain or the psychology of students and what they need and the different philosophical beliefs about education and teaching styles. In the moment, it doesn't always seem super helpful and applicable, but I think it does make you think about things differently. And I know it's changed the way I plan lessons, trying to think about, the whole student and trying to change and give them as much variety and meet their needs. So that for the master's degree has been particularly helpful for me. I'm not sure if you felt the same way about yours. Speaking of that, what did you just get?
Well, I just got a reduction on my auto insurance.
Oh my God.
But that has nothing to do with this. But I just got that email saying that, hey, good news. You've been a good driver. We reduced your auto insurance by $200.
Hey, there you go, everybody. That's the big news. $200 less bucks.
Which means that my wife and I can drive pretty safe. I'm knocking on wood because, I don't want anything to go against that. But in all seriousness, I'm going to say we got a doctorate degree. And the reason why I say we, and I just earned my doctorate degree in teacher leadership in digital transformation in education. And the reason why I say we is because this took me between 3.5 and 4 years. And that is a long time to me. And it seems like it took like 12 years, maybe 15 years, because I feel like I was at it forever because I was making time in my day where I would get to school at 4:45 in the morning to write a paper. And the reason why I had to do that is because of the fact that, I have a family, I have a full-time job, I coach a couple of sports, that type of thing. But the reason why I keep saying we got a doctorate degree is because there's several people that made this possible. My wife, my mother-in-law, my kids, even though they're probably a little young yet to understand what they sacrificed in this process. But my peers that helped me, I have several colleagues that I'm very grateful for helping me in this process, allowing me to do studies with them involved, because I don't have a physical classroom. So we got things done this year. So that was one. My family grew this year too. So we just celebrated the birth of our third kid, 6 months ago.
Yeah, it's big stuff, man. I know I've told you congratulations, but I'll say it again on the show. Earning the doctorate, it's watching you go through the process is crazy, and you should be super proud. And just for anybody listening, first of all, he does want to be referred to as Dr. Guise.
I do not. I do not. I'm actually going the other way. I'm getting rid of Mr. and on my nameplate on my door it just says G.
There you go. So you're going less formal. I like that.
Less is more.
Yeah. The other thing is, if you're thinking about or have been thinking about some kind of extra certificate or going back to school, you just have to go for it. Just dive right in. Like with so many things, I put it off for a long time, and still was hesitant starting up that whole process. But you can do anything. Nobody's busier than Guise is, and if he can get this degree with all the stuff he's involved in, anybody can do anything. So give it a try. It does benefit you a lot.
I appreciate that, Nick. I appreciate the congratulations. I will say this: you do not need to be extremely smart to get a doctorate. You do not need to have the best writing skills, because when it comes to writing, I'm adequate at best. What you need to be is 100% crazy. That's what you need. It takes you being crazy, understanding that you're going to live a crazy life for 4 years. And then after that, you got that piece of paper that says that you accomplished craziness, and you get to go out and work with a lot of amazing people. It's very new to me, but it already has opened up so many doors, and I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah, I wanted to just throw that in as one last piece. Opening doors, definitely the extra degree can help you with that in ways you might not even think about. So that's a big one. Something else I've been thinking about from this past year, I don't want to go too deep into it because we've talked about it a lot, just because it was a big deal for us. I'm going to call this in general the power of PD, and how important it is and how powerful it can be to attend different sessions and talk to your colleagues. For us, the biggest one of those this past year was, of course, the ISTE conference in Philadelphia. Just meeting with so many worldwide tech educators. I know it changed a lot of what we do on the podcast and changed our direction in a lot of different ways. Anybody that's going to be in the area of the ISTE conference for this coming year, I know it's probably not a possibility for us. I believe it's out in California, but if you are on the West Coast, definitely check it out. And if you can't swing that one, then just find some. They're all over the place. Every state has their big kind of go-to conferences, and it doesn't even have to be a tech one, but you get so much out of these experiences. And if you found yourself in maybe a lull where you're just focused on that day-to-day stuff, take some time to think big picture and attend some PD sessions, because it really can, though it may seem difficult, it kind of can pump some energy back into your day and get you excited about some new things.
Speaking of PD, Nick, where are we going to be over the next couple of months? What are some conferences that we're going to take on?
Yeah, sure. So if you're in the New Jersey, New York, Philadelphia, general kind of tri-state area there on the Mid-Atlantic East Coast, you can check us out at, I always get the letters mixed up, NJECC or
Yes.
EEC. It's ECC.
NJECC.
Yeah, the NJECC conference. It's in Northern Jersey. We presented there last year. It's a great conference on the Montclair University campus. Really exciting. We're going back there to present again this year. It's in January. 3 of our favorite sessions to share with people. So you can do that one. And I believe, hopefully if we're lucky, we have another one coming up in South Jersey in March. It's put on by a Gifted and Talented Teaching Association in New Jersey, which we haven't been to before, but we're excited for the possibility to head down there to share some similar stuff as well. So that should be really, really nice.
Those are the two coming up that are a little bit bigger. We have a couple smaller ones. We'll be at a couple ed camps and things like that over the next couple of months, but we're hoping to pick up a little bit more. Let's get into our reflection on our podcast a little bit, and I'll start this off. And GotTech, we're a little over a year and a half old now. We're 49 episodes in. We just now started to really hit the ground running with our blog, and we're giving a lot of free templates away and things like that. So head over to the site, sign up for one of our free templates. That will put you on our newsletter as well. And every month we'll send out updates to the free templates that we have, where we're going to be. We're not going to spam you in your email to be like a once or twice a month thing. We're thinking on alternate weeks of our podcast. But head over to GotTech.com. Sign up, subscribe, be a part of our GotTech community, and grow with us.
Yeah, definitely check it out. I think also for 2020, it's going to mean we need a name for our GotTech community. I don't know what it's going to be yet. I've got some ideas. I was thinking like maybe the GotTechies jumps out at me immediately. I haven't ran any of these by you yet. They're just kind of popping into my head as we go. But if you check out GotTech.com, you can see some of these new resources that we're providing. And like I said, the newsletter, and just kind of be a part of that growing community. So definitely check it out. You can follow GotTech outside the podcast at GotTech.com or on Twitter at WeGotTech.
All right, so this is kind of a wrap-up segment to some of the things that we've been doing over the last couple of months. We've been to 7 different events, including ed camps, conferences, things like that. And one thing we always ask for are questions from our audience, and we give them a Google form, and we say it could be anonymous. We don't collect email addresses for this. We say it could be anonymous if they want to put their first or last name, or even their contact information if they want direct communication from us. But for this, we'll probably just say either anonymous or give a first name, because some of these questions I really enjoy, because they're digging deep, and maybe they're really admitting to some areas that they can improve upon, or in some cases, the way you and I can improve upon. We could relate to this a lot. So we wanted to bring this to a podcast. And we think it's very important to reflect on some of these issues, because a lot of these actually have gone with some of the podcast episodes that we've done, but it's also stuff that people time and time again bring up and really want to dive into and discuss. So we're hoping that this segment of the episode will cause us to get more questions from our audience, and also maybe start, some type of a chat, like some type of a dialogue on Twitter or somewhere else. So let's just get right into it. And Nick, why don't you go ahead and take the first one?
Yeah, sure. So this is from Larry in Philadelphia. Thanks, Larry. Larry says that his students seem bored. He feels like that he's being too routine in the classroom. In particular, Larry comments, I thought I am producing quality activities, but student feedback is telling me otherwise. So if you've had an experience like this, to anybody, and to Larry, if you happen to catch the episode, I think for me, one of my big takeaways, it's something we've been thinking about a lot on the show. Definitely think about bringing some elements of gamification into your classroom. If you want to break away from that routine, make it fun, kind of see some engagement. I think for students of literally any grade level, you can't do that any better than with game elements, whether it be a scavenger hunt in the room where they sort of get to get up and move around, whether it be even just as simple as going to like a tech tool such as Kahoot as the most popular one, but maybe a Gim kit if you really want to get fancy. Even some of the motivating tools that you can use, like Classcraft, to sort of engage kids in really any process of the classroom, as from even mundane things like just procedural stuff. There's all these little ways that you can sort of spice it up. So that's what I would say to Larry in Philly.
Yeah, I'm going to just chime in a little bit on this, because I totally get it, especially with some schools that make teachers have the same tests, do the same labs, do the same this, do the same that. Gamification is fantastic to break it up, but you don't need to get too far away from that routine. Remember, we need to think about all of our students, and some students need the routine. If they don't have the routine, they get lost. So gamification, you could just add that as a learning activity within this routine, but it's going to change it up. But the other thing I could think of is, when I was in the classroom, I love Survivor. I absolutely love Survivor. It's competitive. There's mind stuff. You have to think psychology. There's a communication piece. There's strategy, all this stuff. So I once brought up in the class that I'm a big Survivor dork. And several of my students were like, yeah, I watch it too. And I was like, this is fantastic. And they were like, let's do Survivor in here. And I was like, okay. And I went home that weekend and I kind of tried to figure out a way to get Survivor into the classroom. So what I did is I put them on teams, and certain activities, they earn points, and then they can cash those points in for a piece of the Survivor puzzle. And by the end of the quarter, they would have to solve some type of puzzle, which everyone did it. I bought them ice cream from our neighborhood ice cream place, and they loved it. But basically, it was just using Survivor as a motivation factor for them to do quality work.
Yeah, so you got to think about little things like that that you can bring in to sort of spice it up. This next one is from Jess in Bordentown. Jess says, how can I get my students to be more creative? I try to give them choice between presentations, reports, posters, but they still seem to be disinterested. My school has only one set of laptops per wing, so I believe Jess feels like she can't always do a lot of the tech that we talk about because of that lack of access. So I would say, and some of this is going to involve tech, and Jess may be planning ahead to get access to those set of laptops. I know we existed like this in our school for a long time, and it was sort of a hassle, but I know that it is definite possibility. Students do get bored of, oh great, we're doing another presentation or another paper, but those are important things, right? We have to have them practice writing because that's such an important skill for life, and presenting. You have to get up and speak to groups all the time. We need kids to get good at these things and build confidence, but to keep them interested, I like to just kind of do little twists on each one. One of the, like a presentation, for example, you want them to get up and practice that. Find a twist you can build in, such as maybe the Pechakucha style of presentation, which we've talked about before, where, where each slide of the presentation is, there's a certain amount of seconds. What is the
20 seconds?
Yeah, 20 seconds, and it's just an image, no words. So it kind of forces them to think outside the box and gives them a challenge there. And I think there's something like that for reports and posters that you could build into.
You could easily do a Pechakucha without technology. Have them make a little, maybe use 8.5 by 11, I don't know, print out images or take images from magazines or stuff, something like that. One person talks, the other one holds up an image, and you just keep going, or, something along those lines. Come up with simple drawings that they could do on the whiteboard that might take 5 minutes to draw out, and then they present, walking across the whiteboard. If you have a 15-foot whiteboard, they start at the left, and as they progress through their presentation, they follow the pictures down the row. I mean, you can do some of these techie exercises without tech, and that's the creative piece on the teacher's part there. Another thing that I like is a lot of times students just take way too long to brainstorm, come up with these creative ideas. So instead of having them brainstorm and put time into the class period to brainstorm, have a brainstorm wall. Just say, hey, this is where we get to be creative. Put whatever you want up here as long as it's appropriate, and start brainstorming. That way, when we have to do a project, someone can go up to the creativity wall, whatever you want to call it,
right,
and get some type of an idea, just maybe some motivation, inspiration, just by looking at the board.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I like how you mentioned that, a lot of the tech stuff we do get into, there is usually a non-tech version. And sometimes that might even be better than the tech version. Who knows? And if you have to do it, you can do it and give it a try, and it might work out for you. Next, we've got Kevin from Hoboken. Kevin's a little bit rude here. I don't know how I feel about this, but Kevin says, Nick, you are amazing. Guise, you need work. Before you get mad, Guise, okay, so he saves it here. I'm talking with making images, presentations, etc. looking good. Oh, never mind. That's actually true, Kevin. Thanks for pointing it out. I must admit, I have Guise equivalent skills in this area. What is a free program that I can use to make my images look good? Guys, I'm going to throw this one to you.
Yeah, so Nick and I really love Canva. All right, and there's a freemium out there, but I just heard, I'm hoping this isn't fake news, but I just heard that Canva is having an education branch off. So Canva for education. And this should take care of, I'm hoping, the privacy stuff and making sure that we're good with COPA, FERPA, and all that stuff. But I'm really interested to see what Canva for education looks like. And I heard that it's going to be free, but I need to find something concrete. And if I do find that concrete thing, I will put it in the show notes. But I'm telling you right now, whether it's Canva for education or regular Canva or Canva Pro, Canva is the way to go. I mean, you speak truth here. All right. Well, half truth. It says Nick's amazing. Not sure about that one, but half truth. Guise, you need work. in this area. I'm glad that you clarified that. But I'm saying that Canva makes the person that is not creative and not good with visuals adequate. I find myself as being adequate. I wouldn't say great. I still send stuff to Nick to tell him to brush it up and make it look good, but I am adequate.
Yeah, Canva is the easy answer there, and really cool to hear that there is a Canva for education. This next one is from Jasmine. Jasmine has a class of 30 students. She says, I'm trying a student-centered approach, but I'm finding it hard to manage. It's hard to tell where students are in each assignment. Each classroom has access to 5 laptops, Chromebooks, or desktops. Couple challenges here. One of those challenges just being, any student-centered lesson, you do need a good way to keep track of where your students are, and that can be tough. The next challenge being technology can make that pretty simple. If there's like a Google form they can fill out every so often where you can see those results, that would help. But she's only got 5 laptops, so maybe that's not an option. I would recommend a tool like Classroom Q, because this would allow students to maybe use their personal electronic device like a cell phone. That's going to depend a little bit on your school's policy there, but they can pull up Classroom Q on their cell phone. And then maybe for the kids that don't have access to that, you could then sort of sprinkle in the laptops or Chromebooks to help out, but use this as a way to check in, to let at least give them a way to get a hold of you if they need help.
Also, if you have 5 devices and you do not have the ability to have them use their cell phones, just have and they're not using those 5 devices the whole time, have one of them open for questions. Just have them walk back, and this will help them refocus, type in their name, their question, and then go back to their seat and keep working. That's one way around it. And really going along with this in the student-centered approach, if I hear 5 Chromebooks or 5 laptops or 5 devices, I'm immediately thinking station rotation. That's where, each station has a different activity, and it might be useful to have a piece of technology, or maybe you have a hybrid where some of the stations don't need technology, and that allows you to have 7, 8, 9 stations if you want it. But there's always some type of an option. We can get creative. We can get what we need in those classrooms to make some type of a blended learning or student-centered learning activity with minimal use of technology, with one-to-one, or without technology. We just have to get creative in how we bring that about.
Yeah, it's a good point. Our next one is from David out of Springfield. David says, I want to give my students a voice. I have a small class of 11 students, and this is my first time teaching. It's also his first year in the district. He says, I teach an elective in humanities, and the curriculum says that the final project will be offered. Any suggestions for a project? If you really want to go big picture, David, I'm going to throw out something we've talked about called a passion project. Passion project really quickly letting the students essentially do whatever they want. Now, you would have to somehow build in that passion project must tie back into the content of the course, but within that, let them research and build and present with as few boundaries as possible. That's going to make them really super engaged in it, and hopefully I'll teach them how things that they like and are interested in kind of relates back to what you're teaching as well. And the other great thing about doing this is that it can build in technology. If they want to do some kind of tech-based presentation, also can be completely not connected to tech. And if they want to maybe build something as part of this, or I don't know, and the possibilities are literally endless with this type of an assignment. So I would check it out.
Going along with the passion project, Nick was talking about, individualized passion projects there. But with a group of 11 students, I would try to get them all on board with one cause. I mean, this is humanities. I think it said in there.
Yeah.
This is a humanities course. Get on board with one cause. Show them how to be, run an event. Show or do something that shows awareness for a cause. Raise money for a cause as a group. 11 people, 11 students. Perfect number to get this thing going. All right. So we've done it here with ALS. There's a local nonprofit called Hope Loves Company, and it's basically just to help families with ALS. They have children's camps. They do a lot of great work. Our softball team here ran an event 6 years ago for ALS because I'm one of the 2 coaches, and we want our athletes to be rounded. We want them to be a complete person. We want them to be academic. We want them to be athletes, and we want them to be human. That's just what we want. So we had them on a couple of our rainy days where we got rained out. We had them organize an event that brought awareness to ALS. It also raised money, and they went and organized everything, brought it together, and we raised a couple grand in one night for ALS. Do the same thing in the classroom. I think it's amazing.
Okay, next we've got one from Pamela in Media, PA. Pamela says, I'm so confused. I'm a second-year teacher, and my school is divided on how homework should be given and if homework should be given. What is your take on this? Pamela, I got to be honest, I'm divided too. I do know I'm getting more and more away from homework. 10 years ago when I started teaching, I sort of felt like it was something you were supposed to do, and it was wrong if I wasn't giving, 20 homework problems a night. But my feeling has definitely changed on this and leaning more towards less homework. Usually what homework is for me now is a continuation of the classwork that students don't finish while they're there. Of course, the argument against homework, as I'm sure you've heard, if it's just purely homework, if they're confused on it, it's tough for them to get the help that they need at home because they don't have access to anybody. It's just them. So that's why I sort of like letting it continue from class, because then they started it in class, so they should have some clue what's happening. And you were there at the beginning, so in theory, they could have already gotten the help from you that they need to at least start it, so it takes away some of that stress. But I don't know. Like I said, I'm a little undivided myself. Where do you fall on this one, guys?
At the beginning of my career, I was giving them homework. A lot. Every night they went home, they had some type of a homework set. As I get older and wiser, I am becoming to realize that by giving homework, we are probably actually doing them a disservice. Let me back up. By giving them certain types of homework, which was traditionally what I gave them, we were not doing them any favors whatsoever. So let me just paint this picture real quick. And I'll tell you the one, and I don't always agree on everything that she says, but Alice Keeler, I think, is on point when it comes to homework. I'm a fan of Alice. Some things I agree upon, some things I don't, but I think that's what makes education great and, PLN's great. And basically, it's all about this divide that we're trying to bridge the gap here. So Nick Johnson's parents are both science people. They're in the science field. And I am a science teacher, but, John over here, his parents, they are not science people. If I give new content to them, to the students, and assign them this new content, and they're going home and they have questions, well, the Nick, who has science parents, can ask their science parents for help. And they're progressing so much further than the kid that's trying to figure it out on their own, where the science background is just not there for the parents, and they can't help them out. So really what you're doing is you're making a larger divide between talent levels in your class, which is going to make it even harder for you to teach them. So what types of homework can we give at home? We could do some type of a flipped classroom where they just take notes and they're not expected to be knowing everything. This is just an overview of it, and then when they get to class, the teacher might go over some points that are typically the areas in which students get hung up on and try to bridge the gap that way and practice in class, and also give one-to-one help there. I think that's awesome. And I think that's acceptable homework. But to give them homework to go home, really, I don't know. I struggle with this because when I go home, I want to spend as much time with my 3 kids as possible. I have a couple of hours before they go to sleep. So is it fair for us, even though they're a little older, they're in school, is it fair for us teachers to every teacher pile on 10, 15, 20 minutes of homework every night? And they probably have piano lessons. They probably have a sport that they're going to. They probably have this and that. So what are we doing? I mean, there are a lot of teachers out there, and this is a little bit of a rant, but I'm going to roll with it because it's coming to me right now, and I'm passionate about this. There are a lot of teachers out there that, don't like technology because students play video games or they're always on it. They're on social media and all that, and that's taking away from family. Well, I think also this homework piece, if every class is tacking on 20 problems, and it's taking them 20 minutes per class or something like that, or say 5 of their courses, that's robbing them of the 2 hours that they have before they go to sleep after their extracurricular activity. So for me personally, I'm looking to minimize homework. And if I am giving homework, it needs to be something that's not going to further the gap or further the divide between knowledge levels of students in there.
Yeah, I like that point. And I also want to reemphasize that maybe the answer is just changing homework, different types of homework than what it used to be, than something other than just like a problem set. So next we've got Carrie out of Hackettstown. Carrie says, I want students to dive deeper into the content without having them write a book report or do a PowerPoint presentation. Do you have any ideas? Man, that's a tough one, Carrie. Diving deeper into the content. For me as a science guy, I always think about diving deeper into the content as looking at raw data with something like data nuggets, which you can check out. We've talked about it before. Really, really cool to have students look at, not somebody's synthesis of data, somebody else's understanding of the data, which is what they get in a secondary source like a textbook, but having them look at the data themselves. But I know it's different across the content areas too. So I don't know, where do you fall on this one, Guise?
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I mean, data nuggets are great for science and math. But if you look into a social studies course or an English course, English with Shakespeare, how can we get them to dive deeper looking at data? I mean, that's a little tough, but data doesn't always have to be numbers. It could be qualitative as well. So if you're getting passages, if you're taking certain passages and getting them to examine those passages to see what they really mean in Shakespeare, that's diving deeper. All right. So what I always like to do to get students to really know content in that way is if you take a qualitative phrase from Shakespeare, from anything, and you ask them to make an analogy, all right, or a metaphor or something like that, then you know that they're really getting it. And they are diving deeper because they're searching for ways to compare it to something else, which means that they get the gist of that statement. The same thing for history. If you're studying war tactics and how, George Washington won this war or whatever it is, have them do a stop motion, have them get creative with really anything, have them make a model and explain it, have them find something that they are passionate about. So if a kid really likes Legos, let them use Legos to make a battleground and then explain what he or she made. These are ways that we can get them to dive deeper, and it doesn't necessarily need to have technology once again.
Yeah, great point. Next, we've got Brennan from Dover, Delaware. Ooh, Delaware. Brennan says, my students are lazy. I feel like I'm putting in all this effort and my students are being minimalists. What should I do? Go ahead.
I got to take this one. I think we need to do some reflection on this one. My biggest thing is that first statement, my students are lazy. Students can be lazy, but they in general aren't all lazy. They're unmotivated. So what I would do is check your vision of your classroom and really bring it back to the teacher here. It is our job as teachers to motivate our students, to get them to learn the best way they know how. So it kind of sounds like to me that maybe this is at the beginning of the year and maybe this teacher does not know the class beyond maybe their name. You got to find a way to motivate them. You could use class craft. That will bring in something that gets students excited. You could really use any type of gamification. Find out what they're interested in. It doesn't say what he teaches, right?
No, he didn't say.
Okay, but try to make whatever content that you're doing relatable to them and their interests. If the kid likes cars, tell them to design a car and put content all over that car. Make a presentation, have the car there. So if they're doing, I don't know, give me a topic, Nick. I'll come up with something off the top of my head.
World War II.
World War II. All right. So every single car has a quality in which this kid likes. Maybe it's the color, maybe it's the type of engine, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. All right, so have him use the parts of a car to describe the characteristics of war generals or tactics, or this one would be the best at this one would be the best at this, and relate it to that car. I know it sounds ridiculous, but if you bring in what they're interested in, they will fly with it. Challenge them.
This also a question, not to beat this one too much to death, but makes me think of, we saw Rick Wormelli speak a few years back, and he talked about something that always stuck with me, which was he had his students design a comic book, right? So a series of frames where they draw in, and it's supposed to, show their understanding of something they read, I think, in a book. And I have done that many times, and just like Rick described is the same thing I saw, which is they spend 5 minutes drawing these crappy stick figures, and they're doing it just to kind of get it done and turn it in. And you get really not super great. There's not a lot of effort, and you pretty much have that same response as a teacher, man, you guys are lazy. You put no effort into drawing these cartoons at all. And what his reaction to that was, when he got those things back, is he took the stack of comic strips that they drew, and the next day he handed them all back to the students, and they spent a half hour of class watching tutorial videos on YouTube about how to draw cartoons. There's all sorts of things that sort of show students like a quick and easy way to do like cartoon eyes or a face or a body and make it look good at the same time. And he talked about color and he talked about filling out the frame and kind of gave them some background for like, here's how this should be. Here's what the expectation is. And I think a lot of times as a teacher, you just hand this thing out with your own vision of what it should be. And then the students don't know how to do it. Not everybody's a good drawer. Some people, that's actually like stressful for them because they think they are not good at it, or they don't know that they're like, for my kids in a chemistry class, they may not feel like, what do you mean I'm supposed to draw like an actual drawing and put time into this? This is not an art class. So you kind of have to sometimes give them some background, teach them a little bit about what you expect them to do. Use a really high quality rubric that lets them know like, hey, if you're going to earn a good score on this 5 out of 5 or whatever scale you're using, this is what it's got to be. Set those expectations. So and then Rick, in Rick's story, he circled back and he said, after putting some time and showing them, here's how you draw, here's what I expect, this is not acceptable what you guys did, and letting them redo it at no penalty, he said you would be amazed at the difference in that. So maybe that's a different approach to take for if you feel like you're not getting out of your students what you would expect. Jumping into the next one, we've got Liz. Liz is from Cherry Hill. She says, we are a G Suite school. My district doesn't have money in the budget to buy any big fancy expensive ed tech tools. Do you know of any free ones that could help me be more creative with my teaching?
So there are several free ones out there. We already mentioned some, like Canva, and if they do this, Canva for Education. But one of my favorites, it's an extension, Pablo, that allows them to be creative. I love Google Drawings. Anything that I want to do anywhere else, I can do on Google Drawings. Find ways to make Google Drawings a creative tool. You just got to get comfortable and familiar with it. There are plenty of YouTube videos out there of people doing cool things with Google Drawings. You could even use slides for a lot of the same stuff. They really work well together. I mean, you go to add a picture, and it takes you over to a Google drawing like Canvas. So go do that. I mean, it's very easy to say that we don't have money to do stuff. It's very easy. And it's very easy for some districts, to look at another district and say, hey, they have more opportunity there. But as the teacher, we have to challenge ourselves to be creative, think outside of the box, and use tools for a different purpose than what they're intended to be, or for more purposes than what they're intended to be. And we kind of went over this in our last episode. Actually, it was 2 episodes ago. So I would revisit that episode because I think we kind of answered that question in episode 47. But I would say Pablo, Canva, and just using Google Drawings, finding different ways to use it. Those are my 3 go-tos.
Yeah, I was going to throw out one that we talked about a lot this summer that is definitely a free resource and a great one, and that is Wakelet. But specifically for me, using the Flipgrid Shorts camera with Wakelet that lets students record their voice, add it to the Wakelet board, and with the Shorts camera, they can also write and draw as they're talking, kind of narrate. I think it's just a really, really great tool and totally free, and they can do it on their cell phones with an app that they download. It's super awesome. Which leads us into our 10th and final question from Mariana, also out of Philadelphia. My supervisor has expressed the importance of collecting and using data in the classroom. I'm an English teacher with 130 students. How can I collect data that is meaningful? I'll do the obvious one, Mariana. Every time I finish a unit, I send out a Google form because it's simple, it's free, and it's just the easiest option for everybody. It's got 3 questions on it. One is the student's last name, so I can organize the data. Second question is how they liked the presentation of the material in this unit. Did they find it easy to use? 5-point scale. The second question is, how do they feel like they learned effectively in this unit? Same 5-point scale. Any data you're collecting, you want to keep it as simple as possible. I know filling out reflection forms after classes I've been in that are like 40 questions long, analyzing every minuscule aspect of what I just went through. Nobody wants to be doing that, and your students are no different. So they do want to give you feedback, but make it easy for them and make it easy on yourself. Just think about what the most important things are that you want to ask, and then use a nice simple format like Google Forms to get that out to them.
I'm going to take this and look at it as a different light. When I think of collecting and using data in the classroom, I'm thinking these formative assessments. I'm thinking Quizlet, Quizalize, GimKit, Kahoot, quizzes, all those they give you pretty instant feedback. So that would be a great way just to see the progress of your students after they were introduced to the content one time, whatever that may be. Okay, we can also look at formative assessment in the terms of handing in Google Docs or slides or something like that. And you could use the extension eComments. We mentioned this before. eComments there's a 7-day free trial, and then after that, I think it's under $10 and it's a one-time fee. And to me, that's worth it because you can do your own canned comments. You could use the canned comments they provide. You could do text or you could do voice comments. And to me, that's a game changer in education. I use it all the time. That's the way to go there. And that's going to allow you to look at their overall big project and give them feedback that's near instant. And that right there is super important. Then you have the summative assessments and collecting data there. What we can do here is we can make our grading of a summative assessment, such as an e-portfolio or presentation or anything like that. We can make a rubric that are covering our content standards or competencies or whatever you would like to call the milestones, anything else there. And you can keep track of where they are based on that standard. Are they proficient, advanced proficient, still working, whatever it is. Use that data and see if in the next chapter, when you're tying in the previous chapter to the next chapter, if you could get that student to raise that standard and make that connection so they're, higher than what they were before.
So that wraps it up for our 10 questions here. Thanks to everybody who submitted. If you've got a question and you're interested on our take, check us out on Twitter. It's probably the best way to get a hold of us and submit a question at GotTechED, and maybe we'll throw it into the next time we do a segment such as this.
All right, so I only feel like it is fitting if we talk a little bit about what we're doing over break just to end the show, the last 2-3 minutes of the episode here. So Nick, what do you got going over winter break?
Yeah, besides just the rest and kind of that rebuild for that kind of long winter haul, right? You come back for January, February, March without any real extended breaks. It's always a grind. The weather, at least if you're up in the northern part of the United States, it's tough. It's like deep winter, and you really gotta keep your head down and stay with it. So you need to build up that strength for the long haul there. So I'll be doing a lot of that, resting and relaxing. I know I'm going to be prepping. I have another flipped classroom unit coming up for my chemistry students, so I'm trying to build a video series for that. You can find it on YouTube. It's on chemical reactions, and I'm pretty excited about that actually because I'm going to incorporate a bunch of the stuff we talked about with the flipping good tech people who were on our last episode. So I think it's going to be really great. But that's just kind of the normal stuff. Extra excited about checking into and listening to some educational podcasts that aren't about education. This has come up for us a couple times in the past, and I'm kind of trying to bring it back for myself because sometimes you get the best ideas for your classroom, or even if you are involved in some sort of educational PD like Guise and I, you get the best ideas from listening to things outside of your world. If you're an English teacher, maybe check out some science podcasts. If you're a history teacher, maybe check out some math ones. It's always cool the connections you can find there, and I always get really, really exciting ideas by doing that. One that I read about recently is called The Productivityist. It's a tough one to say. The Productivityist, featuring Mike Vardy, is pretty cool. It's all about how to remain productive in your job and in your life and to sort of avoid distractions, and our world is really full of that. So I hope that's going to bring some stuff to my own to kind of help me out. Another one is called How to Be Awesome at Your Job. This podcast by Pete Makaitis. He's a career coach, and he goes obviously into how to, sort of stay productive along similar lines. So I'm looking forward to both of those. And my favorite educational but not about education podcast is one I've brought up before. It's called Stuff You Should Know. I think every teacher should listen to Stuff You Should Know. They just bring up so many cool things, and if they're about science and related, I frequently will have my students listen to them and sort of build it into a class assignment to make it a little bit more interesting. So check those guys out also, but I hope that sort of helps in the rejuvenation process for me. What about you? What are you thinking, guys?
Well, I'll just stay on the avenue of podcasts real quick because I know this is going to drive you nuts. But in my podcast player, I looked this morning and I have 1,452 unlistened to episodes.
Oh my God.
How does that make you feel, Nick?
I'm stressed and anxious already.
Yeah, so I'm going to be definitely doing some of that. I also have bought a couple books that I wanted to read over the last 2 years that I haven't had a chance. And lately, I've just been reading a lot on Sundays before the kids get up, after they go to bed. I've been trying to read, just catch up on things so I could better my practice. And what better way to do that than sitting down with the Teach Better team and finishing Teach Better. I started the first 2 chapters of it. I stopped because I really wanted to save it for Christmas break because the first 2 chapters are absolutely amazing. And I really wanted to give it the time that it deserves to sit down. I like to write all over my books that I buy. I like to take notes, and from time to time I'll go back in and I'll read some of the reflections that I take away from the book. So Teach Better book is one that I'm going to sit down with. I'll put that in the show notes where you could get it. You could go to teachbetter.com. Chad, Tiffany, Ray, and Jeff, I asked them to sign the book by leaving their favorite quotes. So they put those in there for me, which I thought was pretty cool. So now I have several of my favorite ed tech / educational leaders out there that put their quotes in books, and then eventually I'll probably do something with all those quotes and have a collection on display there. But I'm doing that. I do also coach wrestling, so I'll be doing a lot of wrestling coaching over the break. And then I'm getting really pumped for Baby New Year's. So I don't know if I ever told you about Baby New Year's, but this is when I send out invitations to several of my friends that have kids, and they all come over at 4 p.m. on New Year's Eve. And at 7 p.m. I do a little countdown. By 8 p.m. they're out the door. By 9 p.m. I'm in bed. But the last time we had it, last year, we had over 30 kids under the age of 5. This year I'm shooting for 50. My wife's going to kill me.
I've been around for a couple early baby New Year's events, and they are pretty epic. It's exactly what it sounds like it would be. So that does sound like a good time. That's it for this episode. Remember to send us in some questions if you like our listener question segment. We think we got a lot of great stuff out of that. I hope everybody has a restful and relaxing break and is starting to plan some exciting stuff for the 2020 upcoming year. Thanks for listening. Thanks for listening to GotTech the Podcast. Remember to subscribe to our show and follow us at WeGotTech on Twitter so you can stay up to date with the latest episode releases, blog posts, product reviews, and PD announcements. You can also follow Guise and I individually at GuiseGotTech and at NickGotTech on Twitter or on Instagram at NickGotTech. Finally, remember to check out our website, GotTechED.com, where we post all our episodes, articles, and resources available to you for free. Until next time.